am here in Brussels, where the first ever European Humanitarian Forum just wrapped up. And its goal was, at a time of rising needs around the world, to bring European member states together to look at how to respond to these humanitarian needs. So, 4 main takeaways from my perspective. First, Ukraine. The forum was planned before the conflict in Ukraine broke out, but it did underpin a lot of the discussions. There were many calls to show solidarity with Ukraine, to provide Ukraine with humanitarian aid, but also to recognize that the conflict there would likely spawn a massive global food crisis, and the European Union did announce plans both to increase its what it calls response capacity in Ukraine, including using humanitarian air bridges, but also an initiative that would try to tackle global food security and increase food resilience. There were, however, also calls not to forget about crises in the rest of the world and to ensure that Ukraine doesn't lead to money and attention being sucked from elsewhere. Second, respect for international humanitarian law. We heard foreign minister after foreign minister criticizing Russia's invasion of Ukraine and targeting of civilian areas. The German foreign minister said that she thought what was happening in Ukraine constituted war crimes, and there was a revival of an idea to create an independent entity that would document systematically violations of international humanitarian law, and the European Union said it would be financing such an entity, so watch that space. But also calls from humanitarian aid workers to European member states to say, part of respecting international humanitarian law is ensuring that you don't criminalize aid work. So a lot of requests to ensure that humanitarian work had exemptions from sanctions and counterterrorism legislation. Third, how to deal with rising needs around the world. Nothing new really in this regard. A lot of discussion around the need to approach crises with a long-term mentality, the so-called nexus, to localize humanitarian aid, to anticipate crises, and a big focus once again on political solutions to crises. And we heard from the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, for instance, that it is diplomacy and political will that will bring an end to conflict, and that's what's really needed. And fourth and finally, climate change, one of the big drivers of these rising needs. On day 1 of the forum, the EU Foreign Affairs Council adopted a declaration in which states committed to more action to prevent and respond to the humanitarian effects of climate change, and to encourage humanitarian organizations to green their activities. Lots of people unclear here about what happens now. There were a lot of recommendations that emerged over these last couple of days, from funding more local women-led organizations to reducing due diligence requirements to access funding. And what's the process from here to take these ideas forward? This forum will now become an annual event, and as one Venezuelan doctor put it to the crowd, he said, "I hope when we meet again in 1 year that you'll be able to tell us that you implemented these recommendations."